This is our real thoughts on Labyrinth. My real thoughts is that Dance Magic Dance is incredibly catchy, and since I reviewed the movie again, I've actually made a copy of it to play in my car.
My real thought is, it's fucking Labyrinth. Who doesn't like Labyrinth?
Oh, I think there's... Well, when it came out, I don't know how many people liked it.
Fuck those guys.
Yeah. I do feel bad. You know, let me tell you about when I first came across this movie, because I want to say I came across this when I was like 12 or 13.
How did you miss this when we were little?
I completely missed it. Like,
really? Because I saw it multiple times in the 80s at friends' houses. Like, they were the church, like, when they would... This got played at a church group once, which I think is really interesting, but...
that's how they teach about sexuality, showing him David Bowie's package. But, no, I completely
It was more like a
missed this
daycare
movie,
kind of
because
thing.
I thought I kind of saw all these types of movies when I was young. I really liked them, and one day we were at our grandparents' house, and everyone was kind of out. I think, like, I got there early and you were with someone or something, so, like, I was pretty much in this house alone. I was just watching TV, and it was, like, Showtime or something, and this movie called Labyrinth came on. I had never heard or seen or anything this movie, so imagine going in completely blind. You're seeing this girl act really weird. Like, you know, just like, you know, and, oh, baby, you never wanted to talk to me, didn't you? Oh.
She was kind of Lucas vibe. No. Like, Lucas's name is attached to this, and I feel like somehow he infected her act.
But like...
She's also, I mean, it's a young Jennifer Connelly.
And then, out of nowhere, just suddenly, one of my favorite cuts of all time, just cut to these goblins sleeping. Listen. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And then just as the goblins come in, then there's David Bowie. And sparkling with his crazy hair.
Fucking Bowie!
From then on, I'm just watching this like, what the hell am I watching? And I really, really liked it.
I loved it.
But the funny thing, watching it, I could pick up very quickly. I picked up, okay, this is like, I didn't know what to call it back then, but I knew it was that category of like 80s weird creative movies where it's like the story and the character and everything was not the focus. The focus was an excuse to have all these cool visuals, this little journey, these fun ideas, and these little rhymes and stuff like that.
And something 80s films did a lot of, now exposition. It just dumped you. It's like an anime. It just dumped you straight into it.
Yeah, which
with no real rhyme or reason or explanation. What little explanation comes slowly over the course of the movie. And you couldn't make this film nowadays. You just couldn't. That style of filmmaking, for the most part,
there'd be a lot more modern comedy and a lot more CG.
That style of filmmaking to me is so dead.
Yeah.
But even the idea of just like, and we're going to have her be a complete bitch to her baby brother, and then poof, she's in a magic maze, and this all happens over the course of like 7 minutes. Like, you just couldn't do it. And the first thing's going to be a little guy in a full suit pissing into the moat. Like, that's your opening scene with that guy. Like, what universe could you make this movie nowadays?
Yeah, and I remember, like, watching it...
Killing fairies. I was like...
Yeah, no,
it bit me. Yeah, it's what fairies do.
I love a film that creates, you know, sort of this fantasy world where it's like, oh, you think these things, you think you know these fantasy things, these fantastic things, you don't. Fairies are actually little pains in the ass that'll bite you and they need to be gassed and stuff like that. And it's like, I love that. I love it where it takes
the
this
Goblin King is not a hideous
thing.
Looking goblin. It's David Bowie with a goblin in his pants.
I remember when I first saw it too, I was a little thrown off at first by the 80s music because I was a rotten little 12, 13-year-old. I was just like, it's the past, but like, now especially, I just love
Give me Smashing Pumpkins.
But now I love that
listening to.
Metallica, Rob Zombie, like all that stuff. No, if that was in there, I'd be like, oh, this is timeless. I would say that if it was in there.
Alright, at least.
Rob Zombie's pretty awesome.
I got the whole... I don't know.
But yeah, it's one of those things. So I'm watching this, and, you know, it's just getting stranger and stranger. And like I said, I just immediately accept what kind of movie this is supposed to be. And I just take it all in, even though I knew... You know, because this is when, like, Aladdin was coming out and Lion King, where all these more adult references were there. And I was kind of saying, like, you know, okay, as a dumb 12, 13-year-old right now, I wish there were more of these references, but I knew, like, there was something, for lack of a better term, kind of magical about this film, and it was the environment, it was the creatures.
Modern Disney and filmmaking in the 90s became very, I'm trying to think of the word, polished. Everything was polished, sort of glowing, kind of clean, you know.
The 80s was dirty.
The 80s was dirty, gritty, not as dirty and gritty as the 70s. Like, the new wave was coming in the 80s, we're getting sort of glammed up a bit, but still most of those films...
The 80s was the 70s without the sun. That's what it was. In terms of the dirtiness and the graininess
and in
stuff.
the 90s, there was very little... I could think of a few examples. The Crow. The last Disney film of that type was probably in its own strange way Hocus Pocus. I always felt like there was kind of a weird sort of set feel to everything, and it was a little more... But like everything was just super polished and clean, and whereas like the 80s films, you always felt like you were in a different universe. Like this was a scary, dark, gritty kind of universe where everything was kind of mucky and there were things in the shadows, and again, you couldn't really make this film nowadays. Even something like the closest maybe the last Potter film. But I think of even something like Harry Potter or the Star Wars prequels, everything, it's so clean, all the CGI.
Well, but now, again, I mean, one of the great things about Force Awakens is that, you know, it was dirty again.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see it come back.
I really kind of felt like, the Force Awakens, it reminded me a little bit of Labyrinth, because, like, so much of that stuff was really there.
Well, all of
and
those
the nice thing, but the nice thing now is that with CG, when they do have to put something in there, it looks more like it's there than with the blue screen with those fire monsters or whatever.
Well, that's what made me laugh. We were looking at the back of the DVD box, and we're like, this is so dated. It's like, from the master of myth himself, George Lucas. I'm like, wow, that changed.
Pre-prequels.
The one who sold his mythology off because everybody hated where his fucking myth went.
But gave it all to charity. I still think that's really cool.
Oh, no. Trust me, I'm not going to complain. George Lucas selling off Star Wars was the best thing he could have done. So I'm not bitching about him for that. Trust me, I'm like, thank you, George. Thank you. But yeah, it just shows you how dated this was, because this would have been like mid-'80s or whatever, back when it was like Star Wars was still the shit and not just shit.
And there was something, because obviously we wanted to do this after David Bowie died, and a lot of people have been asking for it, and we were kind of saying like, well, Lindsay kind of did, and it's a really funny review, and...
I had one guy on my public Facebook, we were like, you can't do that. Lindsay did it. It's the law! Yeah, like as if there's some unwritten rule here, like, I'm like, what? There's no rule book or law here.
Yeah, that's what James Rolfe said, I thought really say. It's like, is there a rule book? Because nobody gave me that rule, but nobody gave me the sign-up list.
Yeah, nobody sent me the memo.
Someone else took that?
Facts.
I can't do it then.
Didn't you get the memo, Doug?
Yeah, so...
Like, if it's been reviewed before by anybody, you can't do it.
What I usually try to do, if a movie is done by somebody and I feel like there's nothing new I can add, I try to stay away from it. I really liked Lindsay's review.
The only thing we added that wasn't new were the numerous dick jokes.
Yeah, but that's, again, there's just so many that we can do. We'll talk about how we came up with those in a second. But, so I was sort of like, maybe my style's gotten kind of different enough, and, maybe I've been away from it long enough I can sort of think of it, new jokes and stuff. And when David Bowie died, it just suddenly... Like, that is kind of like one of the major introductions to him, is that a lot of people were introduced to him through Labyrinth. I mean, obviously, his music as well, probably more. But, a lot were introduced through Labyrinth, and you see him pop up in that movie, and I think that actually kind of was my introduction to David Bowie. Like, maybe I heard his songs, but I didn't know of, like, the creature, David Bowie, like the man. So when I see him in this movie... No, I
love that. I want to refer to him as the creature David Bowie from now on.
Yeah, he's just this entity, and when you first see him...
The all-seeing entity that came down from the cosmos to grace us.
When I first see him in the movie, he comes in, there's all those sparkles, and he's so 80s and so strange. So 80s and yet so not, also. And I'm like, and again, to this 12, 13-year-old that just loves to judge things, I'm looking at it, it's like, I don't know where this guy falls. He looks kind of weird and goofy, but is he just like kind of dumb or whatever? And as soon as he says...
You really were a dick in high school.
Oh no, everybody at 12 or 13 is, especially if you're a boy. You're a total asshole.
I'm just remembering you in high school. I'm just like, yeah, you were pretty pretentious.
No, high school, to 12, 13, I think it was still like, Well, that's like 5th or 6th grade or something like that. When I got into high school, that's where the real pretentiousness started. I am artist.
I just don't know where this Bowie character is coming from.
Yeah, no, that's high school. When I saw this, like I said, I was in like 5th or 6th grade. I'm just like, not knowing. But as soon as he says, "What's said is said," I mean, it's just immediate presence. He just grabs you with that voice and the way he says the lines, and he makes these lines that are not especially like phenomenal or even make that much sense.
A million girls hit early puberty.
But he just took command of that role. I mean, he just totally embodied it and made it so cool. It's like so 80s and so corny in many respects, but it is so cool.
No, it's definitely, and it's one of those movies. It was like one of those sexual awakening movies for a lot of kids because the girls had David Bowie and the guys had
Jennifer Connelly. Yeah.
Jennifer Connelly, one of my early crushes, and it's like, I mean, when you're a kid, it's okay because she's like a young teen, and it's just like. Then when we saw The Rocketeer, Jennifer Connelly,
that's why I think she's like the most. Oh my god! She's beautiful in that movie. No, and as a kid, like I was attracted to how she looked, but like the personality and the voice and everything was a huge turn off. Goblin King!
Well, it's very funny.
This broad's really annoying.
She gets better as the movie goes on. She drops that English accent she's got, that George Lucas English accent.
We're blaming Lucas for so much, but chances are he really didn't have that much to do with anything.
You know what the funny thing is? I still want to blame him because that feels like one of his fingerprints.
You know, it was written by a British guy. Maybe that happened.
Speaking of Brits, Terry Jones, Monty Python helped write it.
He's written a lot of fantasies, and they're a lot of fun. I kind of feel bad because he kind of got, like, some of his projects didn't do very well or they got swept on it. Is somewhere even that good.
I liked Eric the Viking.
I think that's a lot of
gave
fun.
that 0 stars.
I never got that. I'm like, of all the movies, I'm like,
okay, it's a 2-star movie at worst, all right? I'm like, I get like, all right, this is an only okay film. And the film has problems, and I'm like, yeah, that one was so slammed. I'm like, this is perfectly fine. Yeah, you want to say it's a blah film that's up at 0 stars? Jesus Christ.
But he also did, he wrote and directed, I believe, a Wind in the Willows that is not very good. And it is very bizarre. Really, it has the one song that's awesome.
Made it on one of your top 10 lists.
Yeah, but he really can write sort of these fun, weird fantasies.
But Jim Henson,
very inventive.
Like, that's what I love, like, all of that's there. Puppets. Mm-hmm. They're all
except when it's
there.
not, and man, did he not do those well.
Okay, well, the blue screen, you mean?
The blue screen is horrendously awful.
That really was one of the shittiest blue screen effects I have ever seen. Like, I was just like, oh my god. I can't even say, like, oh, well, it was the 80s. No. If you watch this film and you were born in the late 90s or something, like, don't think that's what blue screen in the 80s was like. I'm like, no, that was bad even by 80s standards.
Well, and that's what's so interesting about Henson is that you do realize how comfortable he was that he had to do stuff that was there and how uncomfortable and not familiar he was with the blue screen stuff. Because I'm sure, if you see how they move and everything, I saw a little bit of behind the scenes, with the people in the blue suits and everything, it is kind of like, oh, well, that is neat. You can see, I'm like, oh, this will be a neat opportunity. Let me try this. And then when it's all put together, like, either had the hopeful goggles on or something like that, and it just didn't work. He didn't return to it.
It made HR Puffin stuff look like Lord of the Rings. Like, it just was so cheap.
And he didn't return to it. I mean, he kept doing everything in front of the camera, like it had to actually be there. There are very few times where he did blue screen.
And I mean, you can see through some of the facts when the balls are rolling and
you're
see
always aware they're puppets. You never think like, oh, this is not a puppet.
Like, I know, but I actually hear this from people who are just like, well, I don't get it because, like, it just doesn't look real. Like, why is the puppet more real than CGI? And I'm like, because it's there. It's in front of the camera. Because it is actually there, and even there is CGI, and everyone tries to say, "Oh, you're anti-CGI." I'm really not. I just don't want it for everything. I like all this CGI in Mad Max.
No, the comparisons.
There's a lot of CGI. I like most of the CGI in Lord of the Rings. There's some battle scenes now that I'm like, these did not hold up like I thought, but tons of CGI in Lord of the Rings is still really good.
No, the comparison I use is that I say, I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit and that they use hand-drawn animation to bring those creatures to life. I don't want to see it for everything. I don't want to see hand-drawn animation all over in Star Wars. I don't want to see it all over in Labyrinth. I don't want to see it all over in The Mask. I want to see various types of effects used to keep the illusion seem real.
There is something to practical effects that you could reach out and feel like you can touch it because it really is there. The computer program is not there. You inserted it after the fact. And there is a difference, and we're getting way closer. Like, I feel like before I die, I will see it where I can't tell the difference. But we're still not there yet. I'm still like, okay, that's not there, though. That's not there.
There are some times where it has fooled me, but it's very rare. And here's the thing. You have to... With a movie, it's already an illusion. You're looking at a flat screen, and yet you're feeling like you're being sucked into a world and characters' problems and stuff. With a puppet, you know it's a puppet. But it feels like it's alive, and the personality Yoda in Empire Strikes Back really feels like a real character. Yoda's always the best example. No, now that
Yoda feels more real as the puppet than he ever did as CGI, and the CGI really wasn't bad either. Like in Revenge of the Sith, it just still couldn't compare.
But here's the thing: so there's already a filter. You know it's a puppet. So that's one filter you have to get through, but then you have to believe it's really alive, and that can help you believe it's really there. With CGI, it's two filters. You know it's a puppet, and you know it's not really there. And that's two filters that makes it tougher to make the connection. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. There's lots of times where it works. But I think it is so overused, and we're relying on it too much that we're not using this variety that should be used.
See, here's the difference.
Like what they're doing in Force Awakens.
With the puppet, you know something is really there. The trick is to make you forget it's a puppet. With CGI, you know it's not really there, so it's trying to convince you it's really there. And I find that much harder to do. There's a few times they've done it. Like, Gollum's pretty close. There are some characters and uses of CGI.
Supreme Leader Snoke, come on. No, own up. Pretty amazing.
Not so much. But generally, it's like, it's way harder because there is nothing there. It's easier to make you forget the performers there in the puppet than it is to convince you that your computer programmed creation is actually there in the scene with the other person.
But like with those fire creatures or whatever, how much better would that have been if they used CG to do the blue screen and move them around and stuff like that, like they did later with like Muppet Christmas Carol and stuff like that.
Like that's a scene. That's a scene where I'm like, God, I'm wishing they had CGI.
No, and there are times where the movement's not quite right, or it is a little distracting the way they move, or the rocks look fake or something, and where CG would have helped.
Though if they did that, it would take away from kind of the charm of all the practical effects. It's like, it's bad, but...
Well, no, you could just, to me, make it look a hit nicer. CG is very good at perfecting.
To me, it would be kind of just as jarring, just in the opposite way. Just like, wow, that looks really clean and polished, versus everything else is all grimy and...
I'm talking more about just, like, the little movements and stuff like that.
How about you just cut the fucking scene to begin with, because there's no point to it?
Well, no, I'm talking about effects in general, like the rolling rocks coming in at the end. Like, some of those, a lot of those are on tracks, and some of them they get rolling fine. Others are barely rolling. I'm like, okay, a little CG on one of those just to make them roll, that would be nice.
Guardians. I actually thought Guardians of the Galaxy did a good job with its CG. Like, Rocket Raccoon,
he looked really good.
I believe this guy's... But there was all this attention to detail, too. That I think the animators, they either don't get the budget for, which I think is most of it half the time.
Or the time.
But yeah, but like, okay, like... When, what was his name? Drax? The big guy who didn't understand.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, when he, what's it? I think that was him, when he pets Rocket.
Yeah.
At the end, and Rocket just like, has like this animal reaction where he shot him, like such a little detail. And it completely sold that. Puppeteers can do that in their sleep because they're there on set doing it. It's harder to just have an animator like come up with that and be like, and the ones that do, like credit to Guardians of the Galaxy, it's amazing, and give them a fucking raise. Or give them the budget to do that to begin with. But it's a little harder than actually being on set and being there. There is like a disconnect.
Yeah, when you can work off of the actors a little bit more, too. Like, if you were to pet a puppy, go, like, that's just very natural, and where the way it would move, is very natural and unpredictable as well, where everything has to be calculated on a computer. And again, that's not saying it isn't done phenomenal sometimes, or like CG animated films are amazing and stuff like that. It's just that it's replaced everything That's kind of a shame. Even with puppets, you have to find all these various ways to do stuff. They can't all just be socks. You know, you have to find different kinds of animatronics and people in suits and combine things and stuff where it's
Can you imagine if they tried making this movie now?
Everyone's like, they're making the rebooting it. I've heard that debunked. Apparently, as far as I know, it's not happening.
Apparently, at most, it was more like, we're talking about it, but there's a lot of Henson projects, though, that are like being talked about that have never come to fruition.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, one, I'm like trying to think, okay, if you made this movie now, what would it be? First off, it would be 3 hours long. Even if it's a kid's movie, it would be like the Potter series. It just gets longer and longer. So it would be...
No, it'd be 2 movies.
Yeah, it would be possibly 2 movies. It would be insanely long. There would be a good 35 minutes of exposition. Where am I? What is this labyrinth? Characters explaining it to her. You would have more time spent in the real world and all the things that she wants and this and that. She would not be such a bitch to her brother. That's for damn sure. You couldn't do that nowadays.
No. The brother wouldn't be a little baby. It'd be like, you know...
Yeah, it'd be a kid,
little kid, you know, who has like the
My
one-liners.
annoying little brother!
Well, we'll say one swear word to get, you know, the little ones laughing and stuff.
Probably wouldn't be a girl, because you can't have like a girl in a movie because that doesn't sell enough toys. So it would reverse it. So it would probably be
no.
older boy and
it would still be a girl. They just wouldn't have toys.
Possibly, though. I think they would just reverse the genders. Like I think it would be like an older boy chasing after a little sister or something, or an annoying brat. Yeah, you'd be wandering around. Everything would be CGI. There would be no puppets unless Abrams directed and said, we're putting fucking puppets in this movie. And I would respect him for that. Yeah, you wouldn't have the pissing... You wouldn't have the pissing guy. You wouldn't, like... Half of the really disgusting things you wouldn't have. It would look very pretty. It would be very pretty, probably brightish, except when it needs to be dark, it would just have this blue-green filter over everything. It would be aimed at the tween crowd as well. It would probably be like Maze Runner with a touch of Hunger Games and you need to have a romance. It can't just be the Goblin King. So there probably need to be some other.
The Goblin King will be her age. That's what it would be.
Yeah, it would be her age. That's the thing. I'm looking at how they made this film, and like it was such a time capsule movie. I'm just like, this violates so much. Like most 80s films violate all the rules of quote unquote modern filmmaking post 1994. Like I feel like maybe 94, 95, post Jurassic Park, post Independence Day. That's when everything started changing for me. It's like now we're in a new era of film.
Yeah,
post Lord of the Rings, Potter, Twilight, Hunger Games.
Yeah, that was my thought. That's when that dark age started.
And we're out of that dark age, but it is funny because I'm like, I felt very old watching this movie. I'm like, wow, this is what I grew up with. It is so different from the shit kids grew up with nowadays.
It's just so, like, I could just look at all, like, the sets. There's one scene where it's like the giant monster goes inside this house, climbs up, opens up the roof, and you see the landscape. And it's done all in one shot, and I'm just marveling at all the work.
And you would do that nowadays, but it'd be this... It would be this CGI camera going through a CGI house. You'd be going up all these levels.
And the camera would be going through the windows and circling around. Yeah.
Because it would also be in 3D.
Yeah. And there's something about that simplicity. Like I said, it's just taking away that other filter of it not being there. We know it's an illusion. We know it's not real. But you have to jump through 2 filters to make the connection. And it's just so much... easier to make that connection if you know it's actually there.
It's the simplicity, and it's funny because it's so much more complicated to do it practically.
It is, yeah.
Which is not to say, like, I always hate saying because I feel like, oh, like, no work goes into CGI. Oh, it's a fuck ton of work.
Yeah, and we don't know programmers. CGI. I mean,
but if you give them enough money and enough time, the CGI guys can figure it out. Practical effects, there's just some shots where it's just like, you have to get really fucking inventive. You can't just program it. Take the extra 10 days and program it into the computer.
Well, that forces you to get more interesting angles and compromise and tell a story in a different way, which I like.
On the one hand, it's more complicated, but on the other hand, you're right. There is a zen simplicity to these older films of just these grimy little sets, and it's something I miss nowadays is a sense of mystery. There's no mystery. Everything's explained. Everything's kind of bright and shiny. Like, I really feel these older films that we grew up with had this sort of dark sense of mystery. They did not fucking hold your hand. That is the huge difference. I feel like modern films kind of like take a kid's hand, like, come, follow me, this will be fun. And like the 80s films literally picked you up, threw you in this world and says, survive this motherfucker.
You know, again, with the exception of...
As us, the audience.
I mean, I'm sure there are films too, but the one that jumps into my head like, but no, not that one, is actually Force Awakens. I'm thinking about how that really was kind of dark, it was kind of dirty, and even though...
Wasn't all dialogue.
Yeah, and even though it was a lot of repeat, you know, that bothers me, I'm thinking of just how invested I was and how I really felt like I was in this world, and there was this mystery, and there was this sense of what's going to happen, even if it's on repeat. Well, I'm still going like, what's going to happen?
And there are some films, the Leica films, the stop-motion films, Coraline, Paranorman. I wasn't even a huge fan of box trolls, but that one reminds me of Labyrinth in some ways. It's like, and here's this fucked up universe, no explanation. This guy just really likes cheese. Yeah, I did appreciate that weird. It's almost like a British, like there's something to British stories that are very odd. I don't want to say off-putting, but it's definitely weirder.
They'll sort of have the whole world focus on one strange thing, and like the economy and the setup, everything is sort of around these two or three weird things. And 80s films kind of did the
same thing. Yeah, it was just like, we're just going to give you this odd slice of a universe, and enjoy, or don't. We don't care. Like, we're here to give you an experience. Yeah, and those films, like Coraline and those films, do that. Coraline and Paranorman and Box Trolls, to me, are 80s movies. They have that feel to it. Gritty, dark, mysterious. Don't hold your hand.
Here's a little bit of a difference that I think is an improvement of what we're doing now, is that there's a sense that the films made now have to have a little bit more of a purpose, of a moral, of a focus on, you know, connecting with an audience, where with Labyrinth, it's like, what's the moral? I'm sure if you think about it, you can pull out something. But like with Coraline and Paranorman and stuff, not only are they good morals and good lessons, but they're ones that are taught in such a unique and interesting way that you don't see that often.
I guess, but even something like Coraline, it's like the moral is simply the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. But
it's done in... You can connect so much more with how they do it there than with whatever moral they're doing in Labyrinth.
They both seem like just kind of very basic fairy tale kind of...
But
that's what I like about them.
Talk about the connection with with Coraline and the parents and the world.
But that connection,
Paranorman, good God, with the witch and everything.
Oh yeah, that's true. But that's another one where it's like to freaking kill a kid off in a movie like that. Or Coraline's another example where the parents and Coraline they're all really bitchy to each other.
Yeah,
like I miss that. There's just. Maybe I miss mean-spiritedness in films. I don't know. But, like, there was something about the 80s that it felt a little more... For as glammy and as weird as it could get, it felt a little more real in the way kids' films were done.
It feels more honest.
Yeah. Kids swore in the 80s, too. You don't see that much nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not by any means saying, like, oh, the 80s, they had everything. No, there's a ton of problems with the 80s as well, and things that don't add up.
Well, in the film, that's the thing. Labyrinth...
But there are some things we can take from it, which I hope we are now with films like
Labyrinth and films like it feel like... certain animes you see where they just dump you in, tell a quick story, and then leave. You know, a lot of anime movies do that, and there's pros and cons to that. It's kind of fun. You get a slice of the universe at the same time. You're right. It is hard sometimes to get as invested, because it's like...
It's hard to connect early, especially.
Yeah, because they just dump you into it. And, yeah, there's pros and cons to it. Like, for me, it's refreshing. Because we so see the opposite nowadays, where they so inundate you with talking, exposition, talking... You know, and explaining everything in a way that it's refreshing to see that. At the same time, I'm like legitimately looking at this with a critical eye. And I'm like, they really just throw you right into this world with no rhyme or reason. Just...
And even the exposition...
Goblins woke up! Here we go!
Even the exposition they do have in the opening with her and the mother and stuff. Like, the acting... Even... I'm not even just including her, just everyone. The mother and the father and stuff. It's pretty awkward.
The Muppets are the best actors, including the one in David Bowie's pants.
Yes. Oh, we should bring that up, by the way. I just told Rob, I was like, look, I've made so many David Bowie dick jokes... And I wanted a list. I just go through a bunch of them. Just get me however many you can. You're like, what are you looking for? I'm like,
25.
Yeah, 20 to 25, something like that. I'll pick the best ones.
I was talking to him. I'm like, well, a couple things. One, those have all been done to death. I'm not sure how much original, because he's like, they need to be original, ones you haven't heard before. And I'm like, I don't know if there are any I haven't heard before, because everybody makes fun of that part of the movie.
I knew it. I could come up with them, but I have to really just sit there and think only on that, and I have to write the rest of the script.
I'm like, yeah, there's a couple problems. I don't know if I can come up with that many that are original because they've all been done to death.
I had faith in you.
And I said, and honestly, I'm like, dick jokes aren't really my forte. That's more your forte. That's a nostalgic critic thing. That's not really like my style of comedy. I'll make a dick joke every once in a while, but I'm like, I'm not an expert at it. Like you are, and like literally Doug on the other side of the phone's like, Rob, I have faith. It's like, all right, I'll give this a try. So the next day, I like literally sat down at the computer, like opened Notepad. And it was like Demolition Man. I was like, what's this? I'm like, damn, I'm fucking possessed.
Oh,
like
maybe accordion too.
Like typed out like 30
something
dick jokes in 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes of just typing straight, I just stared at the computer and I was like, wow. How sad is it that this is my super secret mutant power?
And even after you sent them to me, you were coming up with more. Oh, I thought of another one. Oh, here's another one. Oh, here's another one.
Like all this time, my secret mutant power was dick jokes.
I will utilize your dick jokes. Always.
My favorite is somebody I posted on my public Facebook, and somebody's like, "It is a blessing. It is also a curse."
So you had him to thank.
Who
for
knew?
most of those
I had
dick
no
jokes.
idea. All these 36 years I've spent on this planet, and I had no frickin' clue that I could just cough up dick jokes without even thinking about it.
Although I came up with the fondling the dark crystals, or hands off my dark crystals joke. But yeah, all the art dick jokes.
That was good.
So yeah, I think go out on a dick joke. I can't think of too much else to say about the
Labyrinth,
movie.
great.
Yeah, definitely enjoy it. Not gonna act like it's perfect or a
Even if you're
masterpiece,
some
but it's very
millennial
impressive.
who was born in the 90s, even if you don't like the movie, you have to watch it because 80s awareness. You should be aware of this movie. Watch it. You don't have to like it. It was a different time.
I can't see anyone watching it saying there was nothing in there I liked, like, or anything I appreciated.
If you like artistry, you should at least be like, okay, maybe I didn't think much
But
about
there's
plot,
ideas too
Yeah.
in there, and riddles, and jokes, and imagination. There's all these various
And
things. I think
Muppets
there's
pissing into rivers and killing fairies.
Like,
Your
they'll
family
be-
picture.
There'll be something. Like, there's something in there you'll like. You won't go out like, I got nothing out of that movie whatsoever.
And if you do, you suck.
Yeah, you suck. So, yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the movie. If not, you suck.
He said it.
You suck.